everyone, class is in session. It's Jack from Cultaholic.com and I'm here to walk us through everything that happened at WWE Fastlane 2019. Now everyone was quite worried that this was going to be a predictable show and pleased to report actually that it certainly wasn't. You could even argue that it went too far the other way. There were a lot of swerves on the road to WrestleMania. But for the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania 35, we need to decide how good it was. And there's only one way of doing that, and that is by assigning each match, each little bit, a lovely grade, and then an overall grade at the end. You know the drill. This is Graded. So we start things off with a pre-show match that was booked on the night, I think. The New Day, Xavier Woods and Big E against the heel team of Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev, with Kofi Kingston obviously backstage because he had some other stuff going on that we'll talk about in a little while. But yes, this was a straightforward tag team match, no title on the line, neither team are holding any sort of belt, of course. It was the New Day versus Nakamura and Rusev, and it was alright for what it was. They tried really hard, and this was the theme of the night. Often wrestlers were putting great performances only for the overall match to be hindered by like booking maybe, or some other factor, maybe predictability in one or two cases. In this case, their match was hindered a little bit by the fact that WWE decided to show two massive trailers for future matches and events and stuff during the match, relegating the action to just a teeny tiny little corner of the screen. What a shame. There were a few exciting moments though, especially down the stretch, with Xavier Woods being made to look especially resilient. He was kicking out of everything. At one point it looked like Nakamura hit him with the Kinshasa, but it wasn't. It was the one that's very similar, but for some reason they don't call that one the Kinshasa. I don't really understand. But eventually it was actually the New Day who picked up the victory, hitting the up, up, down, down, their double team finisher. And I don't really know what to think of that, to be honest, because I thought that maybe it would have benefited the heel team more if they'd picked up a victory. And I thought as well that the New Day might lose to play into Kofi's story, add a layer of desperation. But obviously, if you've seen the show, that's not how things really panned out at all. So yes, the New Day picked up a victory after a pretty good match, but one that I will say was hindered by the fact that the New Day won, which wasn't too bad. I just think that it kind of buries Rusev and Nakamura a little bit. Not a lot, a little bit. And also the whole stuff overshadowing the match in the early goings on, the big trailers and stuff dominating the screen, which is irritating when the shows are so long and they've really got time to space these things out and they don't really need to air them during matches. But on the whole, I'm going to give this one a B-, a good effort from the lads, not the most spectacular thing by any stretch of the imagination, but a decent match to kick things off. We thought then that we were going to have Andrade versus Rey Mysterio on the pre-show as well, but some backstage shenanigans meant that Samoa Joe signed a contract to defend his title in a four-way match on the main portion of the show. So let's just get straight to the main show. It opened with the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. The champions, the Usos, defending against Shane McMahon and hometown hero, The Miz, with War George just sat there ringside as well. Come on, George, you can be the inspiration that leads your son's team to glory. That's not how things really panned out. This match was pretty ragged early on. Shane McMahon isn't the most flawless wrestler in the world, of course, but it told a strong story, and once The Miz got the hot tag in and started hitting all sorts of moves on the Usos, it really did pick up. It was really interesting and different to see The Miz add even more babyface type moves to his repertoire. His splash from the top rope to the outside on both Usos was legitimately awesome. It was great, and the whole reaction of the crowd towards The Miz throughout was excellent. It's great to see wrestlers wrestle in their hometown, especially when they're babyfaces and everyone's cheering them on, and Cleveland really showed a lot of love to The Miz, and vice versa with his shirt that said Cleveland is awesome, dressed in Cleveland Browns colours and that sort of thing. It really was a fun atmosphere and a fun opening to the night. But then things really went down. Stuff happened in this match and it's changed the landscape of WWE forever. Well, first and foremost, let's talk about the finish of the match. If you've seen it, you'll know that Georgie boy at ringside encouraged Miz to go back up to the top rope and dive onto one of the Usos in the ring. It all went a bit wrong and eventually Miz ended up getting pinned, costing his team the match. And Shane McMahon, to be fair to him, looked very understanding. He was like, you know what, I'm Shane McMahon. I love jumping off high things. It's what I do. It's very much my MO. So I can understand why you did that, Miz. The pair, having lost, went outside the ring to talk to George and raise his hands and go, you know what, George, you've been along with us on this journey. Miz started to walk off, and then Shane O'Mac clocked him from behind and turned heel. We forgot that Shane is just as much of a McMahon as his dad and his sister as well. Oh, what a dastardly man. Also, big shout out to George as well for doing the very minimum that he could. His son's being beaten up in front of him and he just sat behind the guardrail going, oh, stop it, stop that, Shane. Shane got in George's face, pushed him down and left. And then George, once Shane had cleared off, came around to comfort the Miz, which was too little too late really, George, wasn't it, mate? Too little too late. I'm going to give this match a B. It wasn't worked as well as maybe a B would imply. I was probably going to give it a B- before that. But the saving grace was Shane turning heel. I was hoping that Shane would turn heel and not the Miz, but I was worried that it was going to be that way around. But no, I'm invested. I'm assuming this is going to set up for Miz versus Shane at WrestleMania, or, as Matthew pitched on the podcast, Shane and Vince against George and Miz, which I'd love to see, but it's not going to happen. So yeah, looking forward to that. I'm excited that Shane's a heel, and yeah, can't say fairer than that really. A solid B grade. Elias came out and sang a song insulting Cleveland, but he had a different segment later on in the night, which I'll talk about in further detail then. So we'll just go to the next match for now. Asuka defending her SmackDown Women's Championship against Mandy Rose, with Sonya Deville accompanying her at ringside. Yeah, this match wasn't too perfect really. There were a few little snags here and there. The two didn't have as much natural chemistry as you may have hoped for a match on a pay-per-view, but it was still interesting in the end. The finish was quite interesting and quite inventive as well, with Sonya Deville looking to get involved, lifting the ring apron to try and find a weapon underneath that she could presumably pass to Mandy when the ref's back was turned, but it didn't work out that way at all. Mandy hit the ropes and tripped over the apron, which Sonya had lifted up into the ring to get underneath it to look for weapons and plunder. So Mandy fell flat on her face, reversing the momentum of the match totally, and then Asuka blasted her with a kick that they showed in slow motion several times because it was so brutal. Her heel just fully connecting with Mandy's cheek, knocking her out and picking up the pinfall victory for Asuka. She retains the SmackDown Women's Championship, as I think she should have. I don't think many people will be too disappointed that Mandy didn't win here. Asuka winning was the right decision. And then afterwards as well, there was dissent between Mandy and Sonya, with Mandy refusing to accept Sonya's apology. So that bumps it up for me to a C grade. Again, it wasn't spectacular. It was quite ragged and bitty early on. There wasn't too much to shout about, but that ending adds another layer of intrigue and builds another potential feud for WrestleMania. We still don't know who Asuka's opponent's going to be, but we know that Sonya and Mandy could well turn on each other in the very near future. So C grade, ground the show to a bit of a halt sadly, but it wasn't as bad as it maybe could have been. Next up, we get Kofi Kingston backstage looking at Vince McMahon's office door. For some reason, he's been left outside despite Vince wanting to see him at the pre-show. The New Day come along and they go, "Kofi, you've been out here for an hour. What's going on? We need to go in there." They hammer the door, they barge their way in. Vince is there on his phone and goes, "Kofi, where have you been? I've been waiting for you." Kofi said that he hadn't been called in yet. I don't know what the point of that was about, but anyway, the New Day pressure Vince into not letting Kofi's opportunity slip. He deserves this. He's been loyal for about 11 years or whatever. Give him his shot. And Vince goes, "You know what? That's right. You are getting into the triple threat." I can't remember the exact wording of it because later on it was implied that Vince never promised Kofi anything, but I thought that he said, "You're going to be in that triple threat match and it's happening right now." And I was like, cool, that's awesome. That's obviously not what happened. So Kofi came out excited for the WWE Championship triple threat match, which he'd just been added to, and then it all went sour. Vince had banned the New Day from ringside as well, probably to ensure that this plan would go off without a hitch, because it wasn't a triple threat match at all. It was a handicap match against Sheamus and Cesaro, the Bar, and Kofi had been screwed yet again. The Bar didn't even have to tag in and out, they were just both in the ring at the same time, and predictably they dominated Kofi for the most part. He tried to fight back now and again, but really this was a story of the Bar's domination. They were lifting him out of pinfall attempts and that sort of thing to prolong the punishment being dished out. The New Day, despite their ringside ban, ran down to try and interfere, and then Rusev and Nakamura got involved and helped out the Bar, which is strange because I'm not a fan of heels helping out other heels just because they're heels and all heels are friends. That's not really how it should work motivation-wise. I think characters should be a little bit more two-dimensional like than that in most forms of entertainment, including pro wrestling. The Bar picked up the easy victory and everyone was just left in confusion. The fans were chanting, "This is boring" as well. This really sucked the life out of the arena. But I was hesitant to give it a grade because nobody knew whether Kofi was going to be in the match later on, whether that was it for the night for him. It was all, I think they could have made this a bit more clear. I'm fine with them doing the story to prolong Kofi's chance until Mania, but at the same time, they really didn't help us out as an audience. We were left very much in the dark. So yeah, I just had no idea what to grade this. So I'm just going to give it that old question mark grade. I know it's a bit of a cop-out, but at the same time, I don't think anyone's reaction was any different to mine watching it. It was more just like, what's going on? Next up though, the triple threat tag team match for the Revival's Raw Tag Team Championship against the team of Bobby Roode and Chad Gable and Aleister Black and Ricochet. And this is where Fastlane really started to pick up. It kind of started off a little bit slowly, and I was thinking, oh, this is a bit like a Raw match. But then, in the second half of the match, things really picked up and started to kick into a higher gear. The spot that I'm going to talk about, because everyone's going to remember this when they've watched the match, was Ricochet leaping clean over the turnbuckle to land on someone on the outside. Can't quite remember who it was. May have been Bobby Roode, I'm not certain, or one of the Revival. But regardless of that, Chad Gable was on the apron and tagged Ricochet as he flew over, got in the ring, and it eventually led to the finish. Chad Gable and Scott Dawson had an awesome exchange inside the ring, one which I tweeted about made me think I wouldn't mind seeing a singles feud between these two. It was so slick, so inventive, and it's just two guys you never really think of in singles action together, but we got a little snippet of what that would be like in this match, and it really added to it. There were bodies flying all over the place in this thing as well. Really did pick up down the stretch, but in the end, it was the Revival who were able to take advantage of the situation and hit the Shatter Machine to retain their titles. I was originally going to give this an A grade, but I'm going to knock it down very slightly to an A-. It was still really fun to watch, a really fun match, and it really helped win the crowd back over after the whole deflating Kofi stuff. The only reason I'm taking away a slight little bit of a grade is because with Ricochet and Aleister Black still on NXT and still very much a part of the Dusty Rhodes Classic, it would have been quite far-fetched to predict that they were going to actually win this match. And the addition of Roode and Gable into the match as well made it kind of obvious that the Revival were going to pick up a pinfall over those guys without taking too much momentum away from Ricochet and Aleister Black. In fact, those two got a lot of their momentum back after the match when there was a big old finisher fest and they emerged standing tall at the end of things. But the Revival kept their titles, and just because of the slight predictability of this match, I'm going to just take away a little bit of a grade, so it does get an A-. Next up, the United States Championship match that I was talking about earlier that was set up with Samoa Joe backstage, him versus R-Truth versus Andrade versus Rey Mysterio. This match was really intelligently structured and really fast-paced as well. It was awesome to see. Whenever someone needed a breather, you could tell they were being knocked out of the ring or whatever to recover on the outside, which left the fresh guys in the ring to really go at it. But this wasn't a case of a Fatal 4-Way match just being a rotating cast of two guys in the ring. There were spots that incorporated all 4 men, 3 men sometimes as well, and then some singles action too. It was a really nice mixture. Everyone got a little bit of a chance to shine, even R-Truth, who hit Cena's 5 moves of doom, or a few of the 5 moves of doom. Really entertaining stuff. You couldn't really take your eyes off the action. It was all good, and the result was pleasing as well. I enjoyed that Samoa Joe retained his title, and he choked out Rey Mysterio very quickly, maybe a little bit too quickly actually. Rey was out in a matter of seconds, and I noticed when Joe was walking down the ramp afterwards that Rey was straight back on his feet walking around in the ring looking all annoyed. But apart from that, couldn't really complain with any aspect of this match. Again, as I said, intelligently structured and fast-paced as well. So the only grade I can give it is an A. I thought, looking at this match, I wonder what grade to give it, maybe a B+ or an A-. But then looking back at it, it was just really, really good, and the pace of it made it impossible to take your eyes off. So I can't think of any reason not to give it an A grade, and that's exactly what it gets. Next up, the women's tag title match between the defending champions Sasha Banks and Bayley. Sasha, apparently, I saw on Reddit, has never successfully defended a title on the main roster at her first time of asking. So, despite a lot of people predicting that the faces were going to win, there was a little bit of doubt in the air. Their opponents, of course, being Nia Jax and Tamina. Unfortunately, this wasn't a very good match. It was a little bit botchy at times, actually, with Tamina dropping people or certain things happening that really disrupted the flow, and you could see all 4 women having to really work hard to try and bring things around and get the match back on track, which isn't really what you want to see, especially not on a pay-per-view. But you know, the right team won, Bayley and Sasha Banks picking up the victory eventually, and it just was a real low point of the show, unfortunately, especially because of this new set of prestigious women's tag team titles. Afterwards, though, we got a bit more storyline development for WrestleMania, where Nia Jax and Tamina beat up everybody, got really annoyed because they hadn't won, and then Beth Phoenix, who was on guest commentary, squared up to Tamina, hit her in the face, and then Nia jumped Beth Phoenix. They both beat her down for a bit. Her best mate Natalya ran out to make the save. They beat her down as well, and it's setting up some sort of, I assume, tag match for Mania with Beth and Natalya against Nia and Tamina, which it did add something to the aftermath of the match, which I thought was going to knock it up a grade or 2, but realistically, it's not a feud I'm particularly interested in seeing, unfortunately. So it does get a D-, which sounds a little bit harsh, but there were some pretty glaring errors in this match, and that is a big shame. Now, next up, the most interesting aspect for me of the entire night, one which was quite divisive in terms of booking, but the performance of all 3 guys in the ring won over a crowd that could easily have turned on this match in a sort of 2014 Royal Rumble kind of way, because everyone wanted Daniel Bryan to be in that Royal Rumble match. everyone wanted Kofi to come out and be announced as the third competitor. So instead, WWE really risked turning the crowd on one of their baby faces by bringing out Mustafa Ali instead. And yeah, the crowd really didn't enjoy this. You could tell they didn't want this match to be good. They were booing Mustafa Ali. They were trying to get their voices heard, chanting, "We want Kofi," really trying to sabotage the match. But it seemed like something WWE had prepared for because they were acknowledging these Kofi chants. They were panning across the crowd when the chants were going on. But eventually, everybody, not just the production team, but the crowd as well, everybody had to focus on the match because all three men really went all out. The other two competitors, of course, being Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens for the WWE Championship. Mustafa Ali in this match wrestled his arse off. He was incredible. Such a great performance for Ali. His offense was crisp. He was bumping incredibly, as he does, or as he did on a weekly basis on 205 Live. But to see him do it on this stage with two bona fide main eventers in there against him really proves that WWE have not made a mistake pushing him to this level so fast. He totally looks like he belongs. There were certain stages during this match where it even looked as though Mustafa Ali was going to pick up the victory, but instead it was Daniel Bryan, and in fairness, the final spot was an awesome one, with Ali leaping off the turnbuckle and Bryan meeting him in midair with the running knee. That was fantastic. You can never be mad at Daniel Bryan retaining the title because he is such a good heel champion, but at the same time, it was a shame not to see Kofi in the match. I get why they've done it, and I'm not annoyed that they've prolonged the story until WrestleMania. The only thing I'm annoyed about is the fact that it doesn't really make too much sense. Vince doesn't want Kofi Kingston to get this shot, but why, if he's being such a heel about it, would he be totally fine with Mustafa Ali, this plucky underdog babyface, very similar vein to Kofi, the only difference being their relative levels of experience? Why would he be fine with giving Ali a shot? That is a babyface authority figure move. 100%. So I didn't know what to give this match at all. At certain points I thought this is an A+, this is so good. At other times I thought, oh, the booking really did need Kofi to be in this and the crowd are turning on it, so I was going to give it a bit of a lower grade. I'm going to go for an A though, because the action was just flat out superb. All three men did incredibly well in a very difficult situation as well to win the crowd over. Yeah, especially Mustafa Ali. I was totally blown away by his performance, and I'm not even annoyed that Daniel Bryan retained the title. The only thing was the weird Kofi situation and how that relates back to Vince, but apart from that, excellent match and probably my favourite one of the night. Next up, Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair, with that spot at WrestleMania in the main event at stake for Becky Lynch. I've got a lot of thoughts on this. So obviously the entire match was Becky selling the leg because she just wasn't ready to wrestle. She signed that whole harmless agreement and everything, which added an element of danger, I suppose, but one which wasn't really realised at all. Charlotte just worked the leg and worked the leg and worked the leg. Becky barely got to come back in at certain points. One disarmer attempt was there. She actually had it locked in, but it didn't really go anywhere because, again, the leg got in her way. And it just wasn't much of a match. It really wasn't much of a match at all. Charlotte was about to pick up the victory with the figure 8 locked in the middle of the ring, or the figure 4, I don't think she bridged up yet. And then obviously Ronda Rousey ran out and punched Becky, granting her the win by DQ. So now she's in the main event of WrestleMania, and that's the result we all wanted to see. But the road we've taken to get there has become so convoluted when the story was totally written for them at the Royal Rumble. Yes, fair enough, put Charlotte in the match if you really want that. That's cool. That's maybe even only going to improve things. But why did we have to take such a strange road to get there? I don't understand. Because of that, and because of the fact this wasn't even really a match, and because this whole Becky Lynch leg injury thing has dragged on for too long, why does she need to be injured all the time? Because of all these different elements, there's just so much in this feud that doesn't need to be there at all. I'm going to have to give it a D. The action was kind of boring because we all knew what was going to happen. We knew that either way, Becky was going to the main event, which is the right call, but it was so predictable. And the Ronda thing as well was just another case of Ronda Rousey doing what she wants to do, but in doing so, overcomplicating a storyline that would have written itself from January. It would have absolutely written itself, and it's just a bit of a shame. But on the positive note, as we saw at WrestleMania 31 with Reigns and Lesnar and then Rollins getting involved, the actual event at WrestleMania often overshadows all of the build-up, and just because there's not been a brilliant build-up to Mania doesn't take away from the moment necessarily once we get to April. Then someone hit random on GM mode because just random stuff started to happen, right? So Elias came out again for the second time after slagging off Cleveland earlier on in the show and no one interrupting him. He came back for an encore, just insulted the crowd some more, and his insults were pretty good. They were topical, relating to Cleveland and the misfortunes that city has suffered in the past, especially when it comes to sports. But then weird stuff started to go down. So Lacey Evans' music hit, she came out and then went back, as she does, which is not something that's grabbed my interest at all. And then, out of nowhere, Randy Orton hits an RKO on Elias in the middle of the ring. That made no sense because Orton's a heel. Why does he care if Elias is insulting the Cleveland crowd? He shouldn't be defending the crowd. Did he just want to cause a bit of pain? I guess, maybe. But Orton has been targeting AJ Styles recently, so why does he suddenly hit Elias, who he's had no interaction with? They're on different brands. Orton got up, turned around, AJ Styles is there. How did he know that Orton was going to come out? He was out there very quickly, quick as a flash, phenomenal forearm, and it sets up the rumoured WrestleMania match between the two. Yeah, I really didn't enjoy this at all. The crowd popped for the RKO out of nowhere and everything, and AJ was there and he hit a nice phenomenal forearm, but I can only give this a D- because it was just so random and just so lazy, a lazy way I think to set up that match. And finally, we had Roman Reigns' return match and the last Shield match ever, as they put it to us quite a lot. They really emphasised that actually. It was Rollins, Reigns and Ambrose against McIntyre, Lashley and Baron Corbin. Now this match was long. It was a long match, especially the opening segments really dragged quite a bit, with Ambrose being beaten down and beaten down and beaten down for what felt like the length of a match in itself. But once the hot tag was made and Rollins and Reigns got involved again, things really started to pick up. It was a bit house showy, you know, it was just a clean babyface win over a team of heels who've been sort of thrown together over the past few months. But at the same time, the crowd were really, really into it, as they should have been, with it being Roman Reigns' return. They hit all the classic Shield spots and everything. That was all cool to see. The announce table stuff was good as well. But at the same time, it wasn't the best thing on the show. But it didn't have to be. I don't think that was the point of this match. I think the point of it was to be a real feel-good moment. And also, strangely, after they'd won and the three members of the Shield were stood in the ring like this, looking all emotional and happy, they really did emphasise that it felt like a genuine moment, and it did as well. And that makes me think, is Ambrose actually, yes, leaving then? It was really odd, especially with them pushing so hard that it was the Shield's last match. Anyway, I'm going to give the match a B+. It was good, it was a bit long, but the crowd really helped it out. They were hot for the Shield as well, as we all were. It was an emotional moment, and you can't complain with Reigns picking up the victory for his team. Now onto the overall grade. I'm going to give Fastlane a B. I thought that the booking and stuff was very imperfect at times. You know, things could have been handled a little bit better. The writing felt off at moments, but the action saved the day. There were some awesome matches in this, from the US title match to the tag team title match with the Revival, Black and Ricochet, and Chad Gable and Bobby Roode, and also, of course, especially the WWE title match, that awesome triple threat with Daniel Bryan, Kofi Kingston, Mustafa Ali, not Kofi, and Kevin Owens as well. So the action saved the day, where the booking was letting the side down a little bit. So a B grade it is for Fastlane. Now let's look forward to WrestleMania. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.